Okay, hello and welcome to this Mayoral Community Forum. I am Mayor Cashenna A from the city of Glenarden, and online with us, we are honored to have three of our dynamic mayors from across Prince George's County. We have Mayor Noah Waters, who is out of Eagle Harbor. We have Mayor and also the president of the Maryland Black Mayors Associated Incorporated, Mayor Felicia Nimhart out of New Carrollton. And we have our very own mayor out of Fairmont Heights, Mayor Lily Martin. Welcome, mayors, to the Mayoral Community Forum. The October Forum is Democracy in Municipalities. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will give you an opportunity if you want to just briefly introduce yourselves, tell us, where you are and your government structure, and also just a little bit about something unique about you as being mayor in a municipality. Let's start with you, Mayor Lily Martin.
Yes, good evening to everyone. I am Mayor Lily Martin from the town of Fairmont Heights, and we are one of the historic communities within the state of Maryland. We were incorporated in 1935. We have a long history that goes all the way back to where our forefathers actually put us in this location, and they put us there for a purpose. So we are happy to be online. I'm happy to be online representing Fairmont Heights this evening. And I wanted to say hello to everyone in the community. We are made up of a mayor and 6 council members, and we serve 4-year terms within the town of Fairmont Heights. Thank you all very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Let's go over to Mayor Felicia Nimhart. I know Mayor Nimhart's driving. Let's go ahead and go with Mayor Noah Waters while she's getting herself online.
Hi, great to be here. Mayor Waters, town of Eagle Harbor. One of the interesting tidbits about the town of Eagle Harbor, we're actually a few years older than your town, Mayor Martin. We were incorporated in 1929 it came about, our town incorporated as a place for Blacks to swim during Jim Crow. We are one of the last predominantly African-American waterfront communities remaining in the entire country of the United States. We serve 2-year terms. I have a weak mayor form of government, but I'm a weak mayor doing strong things. And we are experiencing great benefits. And I am excited and about serving. And I look forward to the forum. And as I expressed to Mayor Cross, she is a great mayor. She's a mayor of mayors, and just hope to help. We can all help each other so we don't end up in a domino effect of what seems to be, going on right now. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Waters. Hello, and welcome to this Mayoral Community Forum. Oh yeah, let's see. I am Mayor. So we have our recording as well as our live on Zoom meeting going on. And I will tell you that this technology is something super awesome. I really am pleased with how the communities have grown and how through the tragedy of COVID-19, how it made our municipalities even stronger and more wealthier when it comes down to the mastering of technology. Even at this point, we're able to host 3 different mayors from across Prince George's County at very far lengths away. And we want to thank all of the individuals, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Cross, that came online with us. Feel free to ask questions. Let's see if we get Mayor Nimhart back on. I know she is driving. Mayor Nimhart?
Yes. Well, yes, Mayor Cross. Sorry about that. I was trying to get the other mayors. I called Mayor Wheatley and the mayor for Capital Lights for you. So that's what I was doing.
Super,
But
super.
yes. So here in the city of New Carlton, we are I am a strong mayor, and I lead my city just as strong. I have unapologetically with no in no uncertain terms will I say I would plan to be a weak mayor. I'm molded on the Mayor Miles that says even though she's a weak mayor, she finds a way how to run her city very strong. So with our charter, I am a strong mayor. I'm in charge of the day-to-day operations of the city. And of such, I know my role and I respect my council's role. But at all times, I have to remind each of my council, you stay in your lane and I will stay in mine. I know what my roles are. You need to research yours. So that's how I run the city of New Carlton. I'm very fair and equitable in the delegations of my duties, and of such we're here to see, to support you, and whatever the needs are, we are going to help. Because it doesn't make any sense, because we just learned in MML that we are supposed to go after the position, not the person. So therefore, if we're having issues in any other uncertain ways, we should attack the issues. Don't go after the person. And especially if you want to start doing charter amendments and making rules and regulation to affect a person, when that person is gone, be careful of what you ask for, because you might land yourself into that same situation. And it becomes, now, are you going to change the charter to benefit yourself? What is going on? So that's all I have to say.
And we thank you for those powerful words, Mayor Nimhart. It is no reason that all of us Maryland Black mayors elected you as the strong leader that you are to represent us, not only in the state of Maryland, across the Maryland Municipal League, but also in other cities, as you've spoken so eloquently as a strong mayor. And I thank you for that. So I'll introduce my form of government, Mayor Cashenna A. Cross, elected under a charter that has since July 26, which is, again, a delayed special election from the city of Glenarden. I would say enhancedly delayed, which was supposed to have been June the 2nd, wasn't until July 26th. But still, as a mayor, came into what was a strong mayor city council form of government. We have since had charter change resolutions that were put in place of March of 2022, which has started the process of driving towards a city council, city manager hired by the city council, where the mayor becomes a part of what was a 7-member city council. Now, the problem with that is the citizens of Glenarden just had an election last year, and with that seems to be an absolute outside of authoritative attack on democracy. And at this point, I will say that participants like the citizens came in, actually had a mayoral, at the mayoral request, came to a public hearing and stated so much, like they didn't even know it was happening. And even though there's legislation in place, and I've started this earlier when I said that technology has given us a different way of running these governments, technology doesn't ensure that a equitable percentage of the community is adequately informed. And while we do have, MML requirements to post for 21 days in various newspapers or even online, there is nothing that guarantees that an equitable percentage of the population has seen legislation. So one of the driving points of tonight's discussion, mayors, is that we look at this idea of democracy in a municipality. Now, you've heard 3 different forms of government, and right now it is definitely a very unique way of leading, and that's the beauty, and also I would say the happenstance that is a municipality. So with that, we do have so many of delegated authorities, I would say, that comes down from the state. So the state of Maryland owns all of the requirements really of legislation in Maryland. That is delegated down to from the state institution to what's called municipalities. And democracy in municipality is simply the closest to the citizens. And so when citizens actually leverage the county to be self-governing, they're asking permission to govern fairly. They're not asking permission to govern unfairly and to violate constitutional rights. The democracy in America must be preserved. So as we look at this democracy in municipalities, I pose that question to our mayors that are online. How are we viewing democracy in municipalities today? And please, anyone, feel free to just jump right in there. Raise your hand. I'll recognize you as well.
Mayor Cross?
Yes.
You have Wanda waiting to get in.
I think I've just let her in. Mayor Pro Tem Wheaton, are you online?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Well, I think a democracy in our municipality should be one where like I think changes to our charters and to our forms of government should be taken to referendum. We should let the people that were elected by the people, if there's going to be changes to that, that should only be done by the people. That's how I feel that democracy should be instituted into the municipalities, rather than we having, I wouldn't call it hate crimes, but people have hidden agendas. And their hidden agendas come out in some very unseemly way where you are trying to tear down another brother or a sister. And I don't think being the president of Black Mayor came slightly, or being a vice president of Maryland mayors, I don't take that lightly either. So my thing is, how do we work together to get to the common goals of what or why we were elected? And with that being said, we should be following our charter. And one of the things I find out is most times the mayors might take it on as a role to learn what the governance in their city is, their form and structure of government, but the council might not. So that's where you have a lot of decisions where people might believe you're taking on more than you should take on, or you know more than what they know. But it's more so you have to educate yourself. And with that knowledge and wisdom, you can take on a lot more. And I think that's where people are not understanding. People believe that they can, with a super majority vote, make big changes in their cities. And then when we do stuff like that, then we bypass our charter, we bypass our residents, and it makes it look unseemingly unfair and unjust. And that's how I see it.
Thank you, Mayor Nimhart. Are there any other mayors that want to talk to that point? Mayor Martin?
Yes, I would like to speak with that. We have, it's been a few years now, but you know, our democracy was challenged here in the town of Fairmount Heights. It wound up going to not only a referendum, it was like a recall election, but the people spoke. It was, at that time, it was an issue that I was being confronted with, and it had to go in front of the people. Well, once their decision was made, it was official that the mayor was to be retained, but it was decided by the citizens. And that's the only democratic way to do it, because if the citizens don't have their voice in and have opportunity to speak, then you lose all your democratic process. So I think it's fair for you Mayor Cross, or any other mayor that has to be confronted with this, they need to have the opportunity for their community to speak. Those are the people who voted them in. Those are the people who make that decision.
Thank
So
you,
I think
Mayor
it's
Martin.
it's vital.
Thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
I want to give Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Wheatley, would you like to just come on and introduce yourself, your form of government? We are so grateful to have you on, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Let me see if I can do my camera. Okay, there I am. Good evening. Sorry for joining. Hi, everyone. Sorry for joining late. My name is Wanda Wheatley. I am the chair commissioner for the town of Cottage City. We do not have a mayoral form of government. We have a commission form of government. It's kind of a hybrid where the chair is, I don't want to say well, I'll say like maybe the lead commissioner. As far as representing the town, I would wear the hat of the mayor when I go out to represent our city. But again, this situation that you're bringing up, I agree with Mayor Martin and Mayor Nemhard. I do believe anytime to take it to the people, it should not just be the body making that decision alone. And for us, we've discussed having a mayoral form of government. We actually did. I'm trying to think if we put it on a referendum. I believe we did try to put it on. We did do a referendum. And at the time, there were residents who were highly against it. And they actually went out and campaigned against it for fear of certain people becoming the mayor. So the residents spoke and they said no, they liked the commission form of government, and that's what we have today. So I think anytime you make a major change like that, you have to bring it before the people. I mean, that's the only right thing to do. You cannot make a decision that big without having the residents involved. It's almost as if the body is saying, we're going to do what we want to do, and we're not listening to what our residents are saying. If they elected an individual to represent them and be the mayor of the town, then you have to go back to the residents and say, hey, we're thinking of making a change. How do you feel? Give them the opportunity to have some input. But to not bring it before the people is definitely not democratic. And it's a process. So I agree with Mayor Martin and Mayor Nemhard. Some people don't know what the process is, and you do have to educate.
One of the things I want to thank you again.
I agree with what's been said. You're welcome.
I thank you again for that. And thank you because I want everyone to understand that there are various forms of government in the municipalities. Prince George's is the largest county of municipalities, and we have 27 of them. Right. So that means that ultimately there's literally could be 27 different ways of governing, but that governance is abided by and aligned by really the people. And that's the thing that in democracy is ringing true here in this conversation, just from all the mayors that have spoken. 3 different forms of government, very clear message. The citizens who have made the decision are the citizens who preserves the decisional choice, because we work for the citizens. Come on, Mayor Noah Waters, I hear you.
Yeah, so I have some detail. I look at it as variables. We learn in school about variables and independent variables, those types of things. So in the mix, in my situation, it seems that much of the taking it to the people, there seems to be a gatekeeper in my situation. And I noticed at your meeting, I'm not pointing any fingers, but it's interesting, the interpretation of the town attorney, because the interpretation of town attorneys really direct. I think a lot of times we as mayors, we may not pay attention to that. But in my instance, I actually had the town attorney to have our commissioners to vote on calling to police on senior citizens peacefully assembled in a meeting, and police show up, and the attorney pleading with the police to either remove them or arrest them, those types of things. So this is something that has recently occurred. So a lot of the driving force as far as not getting it to the people, from what I am living, my empiricism as a mayor right now, is the interference of the attorney. And I see that their opinions, they're not judges, but their opinions can weigh heavily. And then I noticed that boards that want to usurp power use the attorney, use the interpretation of the attorney. The attorneys can become puppeteers, and they can really direct the outcomes of the towns from the background. So that's just some insight I needed to offer. So thank you for that. Thank you for listening.
Mayor Waters, did you say that the city attorney was ordering senior citizens to be arrested?
So yes. So there was a meeting, a closed meeting, and sort of like what you're experiencing, but maybe a little more dramatic, and and in the space of time, where they wanted to have a private vote of me, and I wanted witnesses. So I invited people to stay in the people's house. And I know, as a former retired police officer, that if you invite someone in a space, they're not trespassing. And I told the attorney, and I had told the that this was a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. So police showed up, and it was a back and forth. Police called their chain of command. They actually ended up calling Annapolis, and Annapolis pretty much told them to stay out of it. And so, in my situation, the NAACP has become involved, and they agreed with me that it was a civil matter, but people could have, gotten hurt. It could have gone really, bad. But it was shameful because the people that would have been arrested were over 70 years old, and they were quiet. They couldn't hurt a fly, and they were there just quietly in peaceful assembly. And, we know from, we think of amendments to the Constitution. We think of improvements in ordinances and towns. How do those ordinances, how do those constitutional amendments come about? It's because people exercise their civil, rights as far as change. So, but the insight that what I am experiencing as a mayor, and to say that coming into the town, God is blessing our town. I've been a mayor, I've never been in politics, been a mayor for about a year. This town is receiving the largest benefit by far in the history of the town, with much more to come. And just need to say yes to the many, many benefits coming. But, I could go on and on. I don't want to belabor the time, but I just wanted to introduce that dynamic of the intervention of the attorney, because the attorney many times is wielding so much power and directing, and they're speaking as if their opinion is authoritative, as far as, it's the gospel, but they're not judges. So we have to be really careful when it comes to the attorney and the interpretation of the attorney.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor Waters. Mayor Wheatley?
Hi, yeah, Mayor Waters, I believe we share the same attorney. Is your attorney Kevin Best?
Yes.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear, because he does that. He attempts to do that in our meetings, and it has been very challenging. We actually have a retired attorney on our council, and it has gotten very tumultuous with the two of them, where they are actually going back and forth with each other. And I found that as the town attorney, he has to follow our lead as far as what we're trying to do, but a lot of times he oversteps his bounds. And Mayor Waters is right. He does try to almost dictate to the commission or the body what to do. I mean, yes, he's there for legal advice, but that's it. He interjects more often than he needs to. than he's even asked to do. So I agree with Mayor Waters. Sometimes the attorneys, depending on who they are, they can be used as puppets to try to force the will of others. But Mr. Best, yeah, he's very challenging. And I'm sorry that you're going through that with the attorney and your other counterparts, because that is uncalled for. There is no reason to call the police on senior citizens. That is just, I can't even imagine being in a meeting like that. I'm so sorry.
And we're all sorry about that, because our seniors are the lifeblood of our communities. They are the legacy that our youth are standing on, as far as the vision of hope and the strength of what our communities was built. I'll introduce the city of Glenarden, from the town of Glenarden in 1939, incorporated as the third most affluent Black city in the state of Maryland. A very proud heritage that was based on early traditions of family-oriented community activities, family-oriented features in just the livelihood of single-family ownership, where, yes, I am my brother's keeper. We had legislation that essentially changed us from a town into the city of Glenarden, and we began to construct equity in building wealth, even for our generations to come, with Woodmore Town Center at Glenarden. So with that, we held the flagship shopping center for Prince George's County. City of Glenarden elects its mayor, elects its city council. And we have recently moved from 2 years to a 4-year term. As I stated earlier, we're just in our first year term, and we've already changed our charter twice. We've written legislation that would go towards changing that charter twice. And you're right, Mayor Waters, we did have a public hearing where our citizens came out in mass form, upwards of nearly 80 citizens who were absolutely not 100% informed about what was about to happen. We did follow the legislative rules of 21 days from October 3rd, when this was initially presented, to change from the mayor city council to a city council city manager hired by the city council. October 3rd, it was kind of like happenstance. We're considering it an idea. And then October 20th, we have a public hearing. So, I mean, we really are, there are sneaky ways in which to do things, but you're looking at a mayor that's being very transparent here when I talk to our citizens. Democracy cannot be taken advantage of. And I will never, ever stand by while democracy is ran amok, particularly 1 year later. Our citizens haven't even seen the operational government function effectively, because we have had in our city a city council who has perpetuated, which over 10 years has been essentially fighting against the mayor, fighting against the office of mayor. And even if I take myself out of it, Mayor Nembhard, you're right. When you change that charter, you change the very heart and soul of the city, the value systems of the city. You change it. And the city of Glenarden is a very deliberate set of voters. They vote. We are strong voters. We in this Prince George's County is what people call super voters. So Glenarden doesn't just vote just because, it's not only my right. They vote because it is their right and their choice to choose the leadership that they would like to have going forward. That's something that each of the mayors have said, whether you have a weak mayor, strong mayor, or mayor pro tem, as in the town of Cottage City. What everyone is saying is the citizens' voice matters. And that petition to referendum, I will say, in the state of Maryland is a tragedy right now. In the state, you have to get 20% of the registered voters. Now, here's where democracy is under attack, because no average citizen, have they run for elected office, and even if you have run for elected office and have gotten the voter roster, an average citizen would not know who all are actually registered to vote in their community. And in that 45 days time, would be illogical to presume that in a city like Glenarden, that is 6,420 plus strong, that even if we had 4,000 registered voters, you're still looking at just over 900 people. And then you have to find those 900 people in 45 days. While many of the folks who would be trying to pull this petition to referendum together is working a full-time job. It is the epitome of an attack on democracy, and it's written into the constitutional system of the state of Maryland. And perhaps the state of Maryland needs to look at that legislation to ensure that the citizens' voice can be held in high regards. In MML, Maryland Municipal League, we are trained as officials that there are two ways that a charter can change, or resolutions or changes to governance can be made. One is under a majority vote of the legislative body. Two is by the citizens. And that's that 20% of the registered voters. And that is nothing that an average citizen can just go to the Board of Elections and say, I would like to have a list and name and address and phone numbers of all the registered voters. In order to get that list, you have to have been running for office. So this is a message we want to send to the state loud and clear, that that legislation is impacting democracy in our municipalities. Let's look at democracy in general. As we look at, and I humbly ask us to, let's just stay with our target topic today, and let's look at fair elections. How do we in municipalities view elections as fair? And anyone can answer that one.
Well, I would say, this is Mayor Martin, Mayor Cross. I would say a fair election is an election that has the proper notification. It has election personnel who have been certified to do their job and they're familiar with the process. It has a fair amount of time for all of the candidates to present their platforms. It has the timeline so that everyone will have the opportunity to go forward to meet their community. I think that in terms of some of the major items, that would be fairness within itself and the opportunity to express their views, and that would be done on their platforms. So I think that creates a fair election.
I agree with you. I believe that citizens having the full view of everything laid out before them is the right way for an election to be held. I don't know, are there any different views on what would constitute fairness in elections? And it looks like we all agree, because we're right now in an election year, but municipalities, and many people don't know this, municipalities are nonpartisan, which means we don't identify with a political stance, be it Democratic, Republican, or otherwise. We, municipalities, have our own charter, and that charter essentially is like the Constitution of these United States of America. And with that, that's why it should be quite difficult to change the charter once it's been adopted by the state legislators and a city has been given its permission to be a city. One of the concerns that I have is at the state, it seems to push down to the Maryland Municipal League whether or not a charter breaks lock from what was originally agreed on between that assuming city and the state. Now, Maryland Municipal League does not have any control or authority. It's not an authoritative body. It is an advisory body. And that's the challenge of letting an advisory body do advising, where advising then becomes a choice of a legislative body, absent of a citizenry body, without any state laws mandating, particularly changes to the charter, be done under a petition to referendum or be done by the ballot box. And it's essentially the same. To get petitions together, citizens would have to walk the streets to get signatures. And they would have to highlight what they want as far as an action. From that point, then that is presented to the legislative body of the city. Within the time frame of if a new legislation is on the table for vote, prior to vote, you have 45 days. And then after 50 days of that vote being a yes vote, that particular legislation has to be debated or becomes part of the citizens' charter. Those dates, those times, you're looking at 21 days for the public hearing, 45 days to be advertised, and then 50 days. So you're essentially looking at just over about 3 months. But inside of that, it's really after the vote has been taken that the citizens can put a petition to referendum together. And in that cuts out half of that time. So once the vote has been taken, then the petition to referendum can be put together. Any signatures before the vote is taken, which is the choice is made, are all void. It is a very tricky thing in municipalities to ensure, again, that democracy is not taken advantage of. Reforms and laws in the state of Maryland are necessary, I believe, because of how we are growing within our cities and our towns. And these charters, we're not asking for them to be, I would say, manipulated by the state, but we are asking that voters' civil rights be protected by the state. And there are organizations like the NAACP who are actively looking now at what is happening in the various municipalities to really take a very hardcore look at civil liberties and constitutional rights of voters. And in many cases are finding that we may be on the edge of violations of that. So this is something that has prompted this forum on democracy and trying to understand what it means in various municipalities across the state of Maryland. We are working to build better for all of us, not only just in Prince George's County, but across the state of Maryland, across the United States. We are working to build better. Does anyone have any open items that they want to brief at this time or talk to at this time? What does it mean to be self-governed? Independence, what does that really mean? Do we have did we lose Mayor Nimhart? Is she back on? Oh, she's back in the waiting room. Forgive me.
Okay.
I see her here.
Mayor, I just wanted to add one comment concerning the self-governance. Now, on our motto, many years ago, it was done, I think it was in the late 90s. The motto said, the town of Fairmount Heights, a government for the people, by the people. That was on our old logos, and it was something that really resounded throughout the community. Of the people, by the people, for the people. That still stands true today. Because if we don't have that, we have nothing really to build on.
I totally agree. Of the people, by the people, and that is written in your township development into cityship for Fairmount Heights.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Yes, it is. Okay. The control of an organization or group by the majority of its members. It's something that is an inherent power of the legislators. I acknowledge that. And when you run for legislative power, there is a fiduciary duty as well. But with that fiduciary duty and that legislative power, one of the things that we're addressing is we cannot take advantage of that. I will say that in the city of Glenarden, which was the town of Glenarden in 1939, we were divided.
The good luck thing I never. The door was locked. I pushed
We
it
were
in.
divided
I said, go back and
into.
try. You didn't push the button to lock it.
We were divided into several different subdivisions, and we were divided into Glenarden Heights in Prince George's County. We were further, as a government, vested with a mayor and a common council, and that common council comprised of, at that time, 4 council members. We've grown to 7 based on the growth of the city, which is a good thing. And we were also where the council members would be, and the mayor was elected at large. We have grown to where 4 members of our 7 are elected at large. 3 are elected to represent the 3 individual wards. We're broken up into 3 different wards. And then you have your 1 mayor, which is elected at large. I will say that further, that the mayor and the common council was to appoint a clerk, a treasurer, and a combined clerk treasurer. And that treasurer was also to enact the duties of a treasurer as well as bookkeeping. And we were also in 1939, mayor, common council appointing 1 or more town policemen and special officers. So together is what Glenarden intended. Glenarden has a present charter that was enacted in 1976, where it did have some limitations in its content, but the charter was developed again by the council to improve the governance of the city, where it as well recognized this charter as also having a mayor and a council. Mm-hmm. So it is something that, you know, has been preemanating since 1939 throughout our city, that the mayor and the town council, as it was called, were authorized to amend as well from time to time the charter. And that's something that I will say in democracy and transparency. We do have a charter review committee, but it's only comprised of 3 council members. The mayor is not a permanent member of the charter review committee, nor are there citizens that are permanent members of the charter review committee, which really makes the charter review committee one-sided. Mm-hmm. And that's something that has been a struggle for Glenarden really for a long time, for the last at least 17 years, where absolution has been made by our city councils. So with that, you know, Mayor Martin, we identify, I think, as a city, and you can see, even though we're very different, our charters are city pretty much written the same from when we were made, you know, over 80 plus years ago, where we would hope that democracy equals people sharing together that voice to change and to make changes, positive changes on behalf of the society, not an individual grouping. Mayor Nembhard, I heard you come online. Did you have anything to say on the topic of what your original structure of government meant as far as democracy and the legitimacy of the voters' voice?
Well, I know for a fact that our voters, they came out in droves when I got elected. So of that, I believe that we normally have like less than 6% voting at all times. When I got elected, 33% of the voters showed up and showed off and got me to where I am. So I owe a duty of care, and I'll say it again, I owe a duty of care and I owe my residents a lot to make sure what is being done in our city is reflective of what they imagined. So therefore, with that being said, for me, I take everything to my
Mayor Nimhart, I think we've lost you here.
in a minute. You have an agenda, but just remember, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So the residents are watching. And what they're going to do, they're going to show up again in bigger numbers, just to show that the residents are the ones that elected us. And we should pay more attention to what is beneficial to the community and the residents that put us where we are. And I told them in a minute, I don't care what anybody have to say about me. If a resident come and tell me that I need to step down and it's a resident, whether they voted for me or not, that's who I'm going to listen to, nobody else. If you is not supportive of the mission and vision of the city, then we have a problem. And if we're making decisions that are not beneficial to our community, yes, we have a problem. And I call them out on it all the time. Okay, so am I to understand that because this is an idea that was brought to the table by the mayor or the administration, that you're going to block the residents from getting the help that they so rightly deserve and the respect that they need by not doing this? And as soon as I call them out, then the votes change like right away. If you are going to have to tell people that you want apples so that they'll give you the oranges that you need, because they're always going to go against what you want or what the administration want because they feel that it's a good reflection of you, then I don't have time to play games. I'm very big on the community that I serve. Like just now, I had to break off from the phone because I went to get the city van full of strawberries, raspberries, and fresh bananas that was given to us to give to our resident. And look at the time of night it is, and I'm just coming back. We're here to serve. And unless you're serving, I don't want to hear from you. That's the point we have gotten to, the point where we need to be doing better at projecting ourselves, because first impression lasts. If you have to be bickering, I tell them all the time, we're not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with you because I know my place. And once you know your place and you stand firm in what you believe in, and you're tall and as strong as I am, I'm not going to back down. So it is going to continuously be a problem. The only difference now is you're going to argue among yourself, because I am not going to argue. And when I come to the council meeting, I put the residents first. And that's how it should be.
And you know what? We have all said this in many different ways. For the mayor, we are the champion of the people. We are the people's champ. And that's exactly who we live for, breathe for, work for, watch out for. That's why we're elected at large. When you elect the mayor is elected by the majority of all citizens that are voting that time. I will say this, that municipal law is specific, and it is specific by the county. Prince George's County is different from Montgomery County, different from Carroll County, et cetera, et cetera. And it also has its particular differences when it comes down to the corporate status and how they utilize the attorneys, as we talked about. Our attorney, for example, used to come to meetings all the time. Now, the attorney is not really invited at these meetings. You never sit in the meetings. The mayor can't even talk to the attorney, which is kind of strange. In most cities, you have your city council, your mayor, as well as your city manager. But in this council, it has been legislation passed where the mayor can't talk to the attorney. The attorney, which is essentially the advisory body being paid tax dollars for advising the elected officials, because the attorney is being exclusively targeted towards the legislation, then that's the only persons who writes legislation should be talking to the attorney. Again, the mayor gets sued all the time by people who sue the city. They come after the mayor. But how can the mayor find out what the defense is if the mayor can't talk to the attorney? I mean, we have that going on in Glenarden right now, and we have asked several times, how does that make sense? But I will say this, that attorneys are practicing municipal law, and they are acting on all legal matters for the special counsel, special legal matters, and they also assisting and ensuring the day-to-day operations of our municipalities. So I want to just say that for a record that, you know, municipal law is quite different than state law. And the attorneys that we do have online are really good at what they do. And they're potentially protecting us from, you know, various liabilities. And then they encompass a large range of issues that include, you know, the scope of municipality policing power, employment, labor issues, real estate issues, zoning, land matters, economic development, taxes, public bidding for contracts, tax assessments, environmental regulations, all of those things, you know. But in our charter, what's happened is all of those things have been written as council requirements. The mayor now is supposed to help enact legislation that has been passed. Now, the problem is, and this is where I find the attack on democracy, is when that is being now taken from the mayor and put into a city manager, which the city council has the sole authority to fire. That's when you find yourself in an opportunity where it could be manipulated. It is something that we definitely want to make sure, you know, municipal attorneys can also act as private legal counsel. They can also provide services for individuals, partnerships, corporations, etc. So municipal law is really strange, but, you know, they are advocates for our municipalities. And therefore, I just wanted to acknowledge that their role as it pertains to a municipality. What we do want to, though, ensure is that the residents of every city, every municipality is given their day to be the voice of democracy, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all of the, you know, all of the amendments to our Constitution, which gave us the right to vote, the right, and those freedoms cannot be negated when it comes down to municipalities, because what happens in a municipality will determine the growth and the strength, not only of our counties, but of our state as well. So if you see low voter turnouts, then it could be attributed to what is happening at the local level, which is why I think it is an interesting place when the state or the county takes their hands off of brewing issues that are obviously very loudly happening, particularly in our county, Prince George's right now. There has to be some type of state interference, though I know no one wants to do that, but there has to be before citizens are hurt, as you heard, arrested, or, you know, really just their faith in government is shaken. So we're nearing the end of our program, mayors. This has been very fruitful for me to hear the various different types of governments. And I think it's just important that everybody understands that there are differences in each one of us. So I'll let each of you mayors give your final comments. Let me know. Let's see, let's go with you. Well, we do have a citizen, forgive me, with his hand up. Mr. Johnson, forgive me.
Good evening, Mayor Cross and the other mayors that are present. One question that I have pertains to what seems and or appears to be a commonality between various actors within the municipalities, whereas it appears that in the most recent case or presentation where the 6,000 citizens of Glenarden that are singularly represented by one entity are more or less combating the 7 members of a single council, which have more or less the legislative charge to sustain, uphold, and or alter the overall rules, laws, and regulations within said town and or city. And I'm more or less confused by that because it's confusing to me that even when we as voters go out and vote in the uh, overall vote, where we're looking at a more or less a president and things of that nature, and we hear from many members of our various communities that the local vote is what counts. But it appears that even when we look at the local vote, we're still having more or less individuals within various entities of the municipalities that don't want to improve the community, but want to ensure that they have their own, they receive their own rights and benefits that they may or may not legally be allowed to have. So more or less my question pertains to, when does that fight end? And is it that something that we continuously will have at all times, or is it something that is just more or less a one-off?
Well, I will tell you that just even in this call alone, you see that fight has happened in it's happened in every city. We have 5 cities represented, and it's happened in every city. When does it end? That's a great question. I think it ends when there is state legislation that gives the citizen voice the opportunity to address injustice when it comes down to legislation that is not healthy. As of right now, with 20% of the voting population, first a citizen has to understand who are the voters. And that's really something that takes time. I mean, even as an elected official, the list that I was able to, acquire was maybe 3 years old. So citizens come, citizens go. But as an officer running for a position certified by the state to run for the position, you can make a request for the voters list. But let me say this, that voters list is for your election time. Once that's done, that's what it's for. You have to go back and get other lists and make those. So an average citizen, what I'm saying, it is impossible to think that an average citizen can get 20% of the registered voters, because the first question you would ask is, are you registered voters? Did you vote in the last election? Yes. Why? Now let me tell you what it's about. Now let me ask you for your support. Now let me tell you what has transpired. That conversation alone could be 2-3 days of conversating. You only have 45 days. Imagine in a city as large just as Glenarden, you would have to get nearly 1,000 votes. That's a tough ask that the state has put on a citizen, which means the state is saying in that regard, it's so cumbersome for a citizen that most citizens do this. They throw their hands up and say, we'll just vote them out of office next time. And everybody runs for office. They give their spiel. Citizens make a vote. It happens again, because everyone understands that it's very difficult for citizens to put in place legislation. And anyone that has ever tried it, it's critically difficult. Let me go to Mayor Waters. Do you have any comments on this topic?
Yes. Yes, there seems to be ambivalence. Maybe this shouldn't be recorded, me saying this, but John Lewis, his form of like, you're going to get in trouble, get in good trouble. What I find that many of the achievements that have happened under my administration, it's like in a John Lewis approach. People tell me, do it. And then what I find is when I do it, then the people who fought against it, they jump on and they try to take credit for it. Because at the end of the day, as a mayor, you're going to be held responsible. So we have to achieve. And Mayor Cross, I have never, I really feel for you, because when I attended your meeting, I was just, that they didn't allow you to speak. Mm-hmm. I mean, I couldn't believe that, and that's, we're my town has always had, African-American, legislators. and your board seemed to be the same. And I was just, what did Abraham Lincoln said, if you want to know the true heart of a person, give them power. Almost any person can withstand adversity, but if you want to know the true heart, but a lot of people cannot handle the power. They can't handle it. So I'm thinking of substantive ways. How do we address this? My way is to do it. My way is to do it, and people are happy, and the people who are against me, they jump on board trying to take the credit. I've had government, get signed for almost $600,000. The attorney involved, the town will spend thousands of dollars trying to fight me for accepting almost $600,000, telling me that I did this wrong. Attorney involvement again. Craziness. I mean, insanity. So, where do we go with this? I mean, a lot of the processes that people do not understand, it's like we almost have to be crazy to do this job in the first place, because a lot of it doesn't make sense because of the ambivalence. But, I pray for you. I pray for all of us, but we just need to keep marching forward. I mean, we need to do it sometimes. We need to do the John Lewis, because they want, if people love it, they'll take credit. They're not going to try to stop it, because a lot of it is ridiculous. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you, Mayor Waters. And I will say that I was allowed to speak, but the interesting thing was to speak as a citizen, not as the mayor.
Oh.
So luckily I live on the grounds. That was the biggest concern ever, to want to go to a council, city manager government in our city, put the mayor on the city council, and in the very meeting where you're making the proposal, perform in such a way. It was a clear indicator to our citizens of what the future would be. And that was democracy under attack.
Yeah.
Mayor Martin, I hear you on this point.
Yes, Mayor, I just want you to know personally that I want you to remain on the road that you've started down. I think this is a wonderful maneuver to step it up to this point, because people need to hear what you're saying. And don't think that you're alone in this process. I explained earlier that the same thing, it was just done in a different manner, was done to me in 2019. So, it was something that went through the process, but when the citizens came forward and they realized what was about to happen, they voted. They said, we cannot go forward with this the way it's planned, because it's unfair and it's totally not democratic. So it was a different situation, but it comes out to the same analysis. Stay with your goals, and whatever I can do to back it. I understand perfectly well. Do not be discouraged, because it's a very discouraging time, because when you think about it, it's almost like it's a personal type of attack. But just remain focused on what you know you have to do, is just put it in front of your community and let them give the final say. They were the people who voted for you in July or in June, and they want you there. It's quite evident. So they want you as the mayor also, not as a member of the council.
Thank you so much, Mayor Martin. And I will say, honestly, thank you all so much. 11 cities have come together to help us, to grow us, to be a part of the truth changing, moving the mission forward strategy that's been put out on the ground. We have supported over 2,700 community members in various different ways, have put 600 backpacks in schools, children's hands, have given jobs to children, have created bonds with unions to continue to provide growth and change generational gaps. We have fought against violence and injustice and been a part of the community assessments that Prince George's has put out for Hope in Action Task Force with County Executive Alsobrook, Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for over 6,000 volunteer hours on the ground. And yes, as a part-time mayor. So I will say this, that we continue to move the mission forward. 3,000 pounds of food, 1,500 pounds of clothing and other supplies. It has not been a day that's gone by that a citizen hasn't needed and has not gotten. We have taken care of that, if not by local, by county, and leveraged up to the state. So the mayor has a very, very important strategic role in being that community advocate for the citizens. And when I say that advocate, the mayor is the fighter
Advocate.
for
Yes.
the people,
Mhm.
by the people, of the people, forever for the people. So I thank you for that. Do we have any other mayor that wants to speak to Mr. Johnson's concern on this repetitiveness? Let's see, we have Mayor Wheatley, did you want to speak to that?
Well, I guess for me, I can hear what Mr. Johnson is saying, and it does happen where it is a repetitive thing. And as you pointed out, it's a lot for the residents to go out and get these petitions signed, and to get the 20% of the signatures of the registered voters. So that is a big lift. And a lot of times they do just throw their hands up in the air and walk away and say, well, you know what? I'll just wait till the next election and I'll vote them out. And then it's again, like Mr. Johnson said, it's a repeat of the same thing. It's just different people in place. So I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you, because it happens. It happens a lot. It actually happens in our municipality. It has been happening. It was happening for a while where it was just like musical chairs, where people would just jump from seat to seat. They would get off, come back on, get mad at each other, go out and find someone else to run. And then lately, I would say this current administration, we have been able to work together. We don't always agree, but we've learned to compromise. And one thing about our council is the majority rules. So if you get the 3 votes, because we only have 5 seats, if you get the 3 votes, that's where we're going. And we try to go with what's best for the people. We always try to be transparent. We try to make sure that our residents are aware and we get them involved. We're begging them to be involved. But, a lot of times the residents, if they're upset with you, they will let you know. And if they're happy with you, a lot of times you won't hear from them because they're like, I see what you're doing and I like what you're doing. So if they don't have any complaints, you normally won't hear from them. So to hear what you're going through with your council is very disheartening because, like I said, we try to work together as a team. No, we don't always agree, but we try to do what's best for the town and the residents. And whether we get our way or not, at the end of the day, the main focus is on the residents. What's best for them? What are they asking of us? Because as it's been said, we were elected by them. And so we are here to serve them. It's not like you can just make decisions, especially something like this, without having your residents' involvement. And to hear that your voice has been silenced, basically, that you haven't been given the opportunity to actually serve your residents in the legislation of the meetings it's hard for me to understand. I can't believe that which, I mean, I believe it's happening, but it's hard, how it's hard to understand something like that would take place because we all know it's a democracy. So why would you shut the mayor down?
Right.
Like, I'm not understanding that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to even understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we understand it in certain terms that it is a power struggle, and the reality is it is a fight for the power of the city. And that's not something that should go down reasonably light with our citizens, because it really is something. And I will say this, the NAACP is taking a hard look at this, particularly the question that Mr. Johnson has asked, because it has been a merry-go-round of sorts. And for areas that are preponderant African Americans, it's a strange place to be for obvious reasons. We cite deadlines, we cite legislative powers, legislative authorities, fiduciary powers, and those are fine. But there is obviously an attack on the House when there is a deliberate action being taken even within a year to negate the voter's voice and negate what the voter thought they were coming to the polls to elect. I mean, that's not being transparent. It really isn't. And it's pretty evident, and it shows in the reality of, you know, what's the witness and what we witnessed on last Thursday, even in our city, October 20th, when we had a charter review meeting, which turned out to be a public hearing. The citizens thought they were coming for one thing, and it ended up being a public hearing. And as we talked about, 21 days after that, it could be signed into law. So that therein lies, you know, what we have to consider. Are we really being democratic?
She's
Or
on the
are we
Zoom.
being
She's on the Zoom.
Is it an autocracy?
Hello?
Did you see? That's what we're looking at. Mayor Nembhard, I see you've come back in. I'm sorry. We've had some really interesting connection problems. She's still trying to get in. Mayor Nembhard, are you in now? Mayor Nembhard, okay, she's still trying to get in, but I will say this, do take heart. Mayor Cross is still moving the mission forward. We will have another function for our community engagement. We are planning to take back our communities, take back our babies from the amount of crime that has wreaked havoc in our 12 to 24-year-old group. Again, we are fighting hard for our third generation. We are also working with the county to address the renters policies that came out with the American Rescue Plan money to see how we can help community members who are in need for the rental payments that were essentially fallouts from COVID-19. And we're also looking at, you know, the state system and what can be done under the Maryland Municipal League, which again is an advisory body, that it may have a request, and we can make this request to our new president, Ms. Denise Mitchell, to actually take the charters of the various municipalities and look at the formulated differences, and not just because we're all different, but there are some similarities, as we've even seen in this call, that preserves democracy. And those that don't, based on how we elected last, I mean, they really need to have a real legal review on that, because you can't lead voters to the poll with one idea and then change that idea within that year grouping. Slowly but surely writing resolutions, legislation that changes that idea. So in the end, when it's time to vote, well, this is what we've always been doing. Well, that's not what we've always been doing. That's been a resolution at a time, eating away at democracy. So Mayor Nembhard, I see you back in. We are at our final closing comments.
Yes. Okay. Okay, hold on. Mayor Cross. What I would like to say is, at a certain point in time, we have reached a boiling point. At a certain point in time in our lives, enough is just enough. As we all are, I've said it in meetings before where there are all mayors in the room, that we all are going to go through what we are sharing with others. So if you're talking about democracy, having a normal election, may the best person win, that's democracy. Selling to uproot somebody that might be in place, have the will of the people, is doing a phenomenal job, just ruthlessly because somebody else has, I should have been there. I should have been the one that has this title. For me, title means nothing. For me, a legacy left behind for generations to come to follow. I would say if we as mayors were supposed to leave office tonight, I think some of us, it's going to take 6 persons to replace us. That's how much we are doing in our communities. And whether or not some are doing more than others, I think if we stand in solidarity and support each other more, that we can get a lot more accomplished. But we're not going to get anything accomplished with malicious intent. Trust is a very big issue for me. And amongst us mayors, trust is like a professional relationship. It could be a personal relationship. It could even be a business relationship. But trust is like a car with no gas. You're going to sit in it all day, but that car is not moving anywhere. That's how I feel is happening in my city, and I'm seeing it happening in other city, because nothing gets accomplished when you have chaos. Nothing gets accomplished when everybody's trying to stab somebody else in the back and somebody wants what somebody else have. I can tell you on the call tonight, I have good, supportive people. I can talk out for Wanda Wheatley. There's nothing or no position that I've had that she don't push me forward. Sometimes I said, Wanda, you setting me up to fail? No, but she sees something in me that I don't see in myself. I want to be the one that sits in the background at all times. But somebody else sees something in you that they want to push you forward. I'm indeed grateful for that. And when it comes down to support, I'm going to support the people that support me. No joke about it. But we have to come to a conclusion. I'm telling you, when I hear other mayors are going through almost like a mental breakdown because of what is happening to them, I have a problem with that. Because I told them, as Willie Jolly says, no just means not right now. The people are saying no to you, it just means that the time is not right for them. They might think the time is not right for you, but the answer is if it was your time, you would be where we are. So take that with a grain of salt and keep it moving, because enough is just simply enough. And with me, when I get the criticism, sometimes I will have, I wouldn't say meltdown, because I don't have meltdowns, because what I do is I always set up for a comeback. That's how I was raised in Jamaica. We don't succumb to our injuries. We don't succumb to malicious intent. We don't succumb to the naysayers. What we do is right above the clouds. And as I can encourage all the mayors on this line tonight is just keep soaring like an eagle. Who is not on board, it means that they're overboard. And if they're overboard, it means that they're drowning. And a drowning man will clutch on to at least a piece of straw. Just remember that. That's
Mayor
all I have.
Nembhard, I thank you. I thank you so much. Always an eloquent leader, spoken very well about leadership and what it means to be a disciplined leader. And I thank you so much for those words. You know, I'm reminded of Titus 1:7-14, where it says an overseer. An overseer is God's steward, and you know must be above reproach. And as I look at us as leaders, we are essentially overseeing democracy that has been given to us by our people. We live in a democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people. Else, why do we have elections? You know, we get it confused sometimes, this freedom and democracy, and this understanding the characteristics between the two is simply that we find it is not interchangeable. Democracy is freedom. And really, it is important that we as elected officials continue to recognize the dignity of being equal, those inalienable rights that are constitutionally given not only to our citizens, but to us as well as elected officials. You don't give up your inalienable rights. in accordance to the Constitution, to run for an office with a full face knowledge of what you're coming into. That is a human right, the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in our world. And when that is violated, we have chaos. We look at our value systems, our principles, those fundamental principles, the attitude, the incorporative values. And that's why we went across Prince George's County to build incorporative value, because that's the whole premise behind being an incorporated city in the state of Maryland. When you are incorporated, you are amongst each other. We are helpmates to each other. And I'm very pleased today to say that we, in the Maryland Black Mayors, and also many of the other mayors that I've seen in the Municipal League, fight hard to build this incorporative focus on good governance within the role of democracy, good democracy, where the people are held as well, highly regarded and responsible for the government that they have chosen. Political and civil liberties can never be taken advantage of. The freedom of speech, equality, the freedom to choose religion, freedom to participate, organize culturally, politically, as well as in society. But in our municipalities, as I stated, we're nonpartisan. Nonpartisan for a reason that allows us to be really weed out some of the chaff that comes with a partisan election. And yet what we find ourselves in is a constant power struggle, where roles are not delineated and where the power of the pen seems to blur the lines of separation, particularly after an election. I think that whatever was in place at that time of election is what's in place. You make it better based on what the people voted for. That is the equality of opportunity, which refers to our freedom and our right and fair chance to compete the way the citizens elected us to work. And that's based on our qualifications, and that's based on our abilities. And that opportunity to grow and develop our societies cannot be negated by someone's personal pen. And I like how the mayors here from various walks of life, 5 different cities represented, are highlighting that that personal pen has become a threat to democracy. Political and civic equality. Every citizen in this nation has the right to not be discriminated against. Freedom from discrimination, and that includes our role as mayor. There can't be a discrimination amongst that role, because it is part of what makes the breath of the city breathe. It is part of the foundation, the fundamental rights, the rights before the law that discrimination shall not happen. And unfortunately, in the municipality, we are leveraging the governor, we are leveraging the state and the county to pay attention that government, pay attention that democracy is not brought under attack because of abstinence. Equality in economics, equality in our laws, equality in our freedom and our fundamental rights. Judiciarily, for our citizens, it is critical to keep the separations of control, the executive and the legislative branch, so that it can perform its role efficiently. When you have one branch tampering the roles of the other branch, you have chaos. The Constitution of these free United States of America is separated in 3 good houses: executive, legislative, and judiciary. The reason is checks and balances, not unilateral thought, but checks and balances, where you can have debate without dysfunction, where you can have discussion without hatred and regrets. You can have it because it's constitutionally given to us. Transparency of government is critical, that we are responsive to the demands of the people. And all 5 mayors had one thing in common, and it was the people matter more than our personal problems. The people matter more than our personal agendas. The people matter more. It is the only aim for which our best country can be had. It is the only aim that holds us accountable for our acts. And in this forum, we leverage our county, our state, our governor to consider the laws, the legislative bodies, to consider the laws that do not negate the right of the people to continue to be the voice of choice in our municipalities. That's our democracy. I understand decentralization. The state can't handle it all. We, as municipalities, become what part of that decentralization. But with that decentralization, it cannot then become centralized at the local level, particularly when the charter, the cities are stood up with 2 houses, for the most part, with an advisory attorney as a judiciary house. Checks and balances are critical, that power is not misused and further kept in check with the help of our political bodies at the state, the county, and really the executive level of government, our governor. The freedom that we have as societies cannot come under attack. We must maintain and not compromise the trust of our citizens by throwing a rock and living in glass houses and hiding our hands. Democracy must promote distributive justice, corrective justice, procedural justice, must be fair, proper, and appropriate. The majority rule, minority rights. In a democracy, sometimes citizens make their preferred political decisions by majority rule, which further is compiled or coupled with individual human rights, protected rights from those minorities. We must protect all citizens' rights. And therefore, as we've stated many times over, only fair way for changes in charters and governmental structures is at the ballot box, where the citizen's voice gets to be held in high esteem. I've held it over the last year. Today, we make a statement. Mayor Nembhard, you said enough's enough. Mayor Martin, you highlighted that 2019, same experience. Mayor Waters, you're going through the same experience where your seniors are being put in harm's way at an advisor. Enough's enough. We give our cities back to its people. Democracy must take the forefront of civil liberties. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is built on a constitutional right that many have fought and died for. And today, as mayors, we stand on this line to say that we are up for by the people. We are the champion of the people. All things shall be in high regard for the citizens. I thank you so much for this mayoral forum. I thank you to all of our brave mayors who have come on to stand up for democracy. I thank you to organizations like the NAACP, who is actively leveraging and writing letters for democracy. And I thank you, the citizens of all of this great county, this beautiful, gorgeous Prince George's, who are listening and are preparing for what is necessary to ensure good governance happens on your watch. We turn this over to you, citizens. It is your time. This is your watch. We are your humble servants, and we are ready to ensure that democracy in a municipality causes no harm. Mayors, I thank you. Citizens that have come out, I thank you. Mayor Cashenna A. Cross, City of Glenarden, continue to move the mission forward. Have a blessed evening.